Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us on this webinar. Sorry, we're a couple of minutes late in getting started. We had some technical issues getting the broadcast to go live on Facebook. Hopefully that is all working for you now. I'm just having a couple of messages come in from people who have been trying to log on, so we'll give them just a few seconds to get going. Make sure everybody's been able to join. Yes, we now have more participants I can see coming online. That's great. Excellent. I think we've got a good cohort to get going. So welcome to everybody who has joined us online, and a big thank you to Wyn Vogel and Dave Norris, who have generously given up their time today to join us in this conversation. For those of you who have not been on one of these webinars before, this is the third one that we have run. It all came together very, very quickly a few weeks ago as our own team pulled together and we're talking about what was our response for our own business and for that of our clients to the situation with the coronavirus and the changes that it means for all of our businesses, including our own and our own people. And we had a great team chat, and this was one of the excellent ideas that came out of that chat about what we could do for our own clients and community. So we've set up a free virtual helpline. People can send in questions at any time to helpline@theotmcompany.com, or you can submit a form on our website, or if you know us, you can send us questions, and then you can join these sessions with us, which we're trying to do each week. Of course, we're all juggling this in between actual billable client work and kids working from home and all of that good stuff. So it's a little bit perfectly imperfect, but that's kind of the way we like things around here. So I would like to start off by introducing Wyn and Dave, and I will look at my notes here because both these people have amazing backgrounds and I don't want to miss anything out about your credentials and experience. So Wyn is the creative director of, amongst many things, she is the creative director of FishLane Studios, which is an international arts hub based here in Brisbane. And of all the things that Wyn does and has done, that's probably the one that has been most acutely affected by the changes in the last several weeks, being a physical location and something that you were just in the throes of launching. Wyn is also the director of the Australian Knowledge Management Group. She also recently led, and I'm very excited about this, I'd love to do the things you do, Wyn. She recently led the 6th International China Silk Road Festival, an Australian watercolour delegation to Italy. Amazing, and our hearts go out to all the things that are going on in Italy now and recently. And she's also behind the Australian Watercolour Muster, which I think was the inaugural one this year, and so the changes this year will, I'm guessing, be impacting you for the next one that you're looking to do. So Wyn's an artist, she's a creative director, she's a businesswoman, she's a founder, an entrepreneur, a collaborationist, and a creative leader. So thank you so much for joining us today, Wyn.
Thank you.
Now we've also got, and actually I should note that that's actually some of Wyn's original art that we have the pleasure of seeing behind you here. So beautiful stuff. Also we have David Norris. Now Dave also wears many hats and is an accomplished entrepreneur and businessman. Dave, your most recent venture is as the founder of Memory Health Made Easy, and I'll let you talk a little more about that when we get into the conversation. You run Occupational Therapy Brisbane, so you're a professional occupational therapist and run your own mobile rehab and consultancy there. That business would have been directly impacted by the coronavirus changes and the shutdown and the need to social distance. Dave's also a previous board member of Jobs Queensland and a current chair of the Workplace Skills and Productivity Committee for Chambers of Commerce and Industry Queensland. So another very interesting and accomplished person joining us here in this conversation. So Dave, your hats: occupational therapist, also a collaborator, also an entrepreneur, a systems innovator. You do your own businesses and you're very heavily involved in industry bodies and giving back to industry as well. And these are your words, not mine. I think you're on a mission to empower adults to take control of their cognitive fitness and memory health. So great stuff, and wonderful to have you both here today. Before I jump into questions for each of you, though, I did want to set the tone for the conversation today, and I'm pleased that our team pulled together some ideas yesterday. We're all very keen to acknowledge the challenges and the hardship that a lot of people are facing, but equally to make sure that we're looking for the opportunities and the positive approaches that we might be able to take in this situation. So they wanted me to share some stories of resilience during the COVID-19 and coronavirus pandemic so far. And there's just so many, and I might ask Dave and Wyn if you've got any that you can contribute, but there's so many stories that I'm seeing of how businesses and community groups are pulling together and adapting in the face of this change. You know, a lot of people are they're being forced to change jobs or change their businesses, and it's really pushing people, I guess, to think creatively and not think about themselves. I'm seeing so many examples of people thinking of the people around them and their communities, and not just their own businesses or their own pockets. So that'd be a really nice thing, I think, if we could bring out some examples of that in our conversation today. Some of the examples they gave me was, we've probably all seen the local gin distillery who pivoted to making hand sanitizer. I'm just as happy to have my gin with a bit of soda and lime and some ice, but others can rub it on their hands if that is what they want to do. Reverse Garbage in Sydney, if anyone is aware of the Reverse Garbage brand, they do exactly that. They turn garbage into amazing things, and they do a lot of in-person workshops and things like that. So they've had to pivot and think about, well, can we send packs out to people? Really simple things that they wouldn't otherwise have had to do, and maybe now will become a sustainable part of their business longer term. We're seeing examples of other businesses, perhaps not so sexy or interesting, but just as important, having to quickly change up processes and get things automated and digitized. And this has really pushed them to do those things quickly. I don't think I've ever seen so many examples of fast-track digital transformation in the last 20 years that I've been working across this kind of stuff. So it's amazing what's the saying that, I've forgotten it now, the invention, what's that saying? Someone help me out here. Necessity is the mother of invention. So here we are in this conversation, and thank you all for joining us. And we do have a question that's come in as well from one of our community members, which is asking us, please, what is the best mode of maintaining with contact with customers right now? So we'll address that question, and hopefully that question can get addressed in our conversation, because I think it might be different depending on what your business is and the type of clients you have. So that's enough rambling from me. I would like to turn over. Perhaps I'll start with you, Dave, looking all professional there with your full-on podcasting gear, and we would love to get some tips from you about podcasting at the end, because I know you've been doing a lot of that. But you and I were, this came together quite quickly, and we were having a chat yesterday about your experiences can you maybe just give us a bit of context about what the last probably 5 or 6 weeks has looked like for you with your practice and with the Memory Health Made Easy business?
Certainly. Thank you very much, Amy, for the invitation, the opportunity to be here today with you guys and to share this with the folk that are listening. So I'm grateful to just to give you some insights about how I've adapted. I have a clinical practice, occupational therapy, Brisbane. My clients are the clients that are certainly most vulnerable to the coronavirus and the respiratory disease associated with it, which is COVID-19. And my clients are commonly older clients or clients with significant disabilities. And my services to them have been direct one-on-to-one, where we're helping with their trying to maintain their cognitive fitness, supporting care teams around clients, prescribing suitable equipment, doing major home modifications to support their needs to be independent and or remain in their own homes, driving assessments to determining their cognitive fitness to drive. And all of these services are high touch, very close, and we all had to stop very quickly. And I was witnessing the changes that were happening overseas, and we were starting to get the exposures here in Australia on a very small scale. And I think it was about a week before the changes were called out by Scott Morrison, and the community restrictions started to roll out, that I made the choice about closing the doors because of the vulnerability in my clients. But it also made me shift very quickly to think about, how do I get in front of this change and how do I leverage it, and where do I adapt my current systems and business processes to support my clients? Will that be of value to them? I had to answer that question, and then look at the most effective and efficient way I could start to do that. And then also letting folk know that that was something I'm doing, and putting out their messages to them that resonate with not so much the functionality of what I was doing, but the value of the service I was providing. And this was just a means to do it. And for those and my clients that find it very scary or confronting, then thinking through that journey for my client to better access those services, I had to think through what sort of support, education, and process needed to be in place. So that was my clinical practice. Basically now there is no driving service. All driving services across Queensland have stopped. So that becomes quite a new world.
What were some of the things that you, sorry to jump in there, what were some of the things that you had to do in response to that? How did you make that communication with your clients? I'm guessing with what you've said, you've got a range of people. So how did you communicate with them?
Yeah. So fortunately, I guess my business has meant that I've got a system where I can communicate very quickly with my clients through SMS and email. That's part of the clinical practice tools that I do have that support that communication pathways to not only my clients, but also my referral network. So each required a different message type. SMS was very short, succinct, due to coronavirus and its impact on our community. We've made the tough decision to blah, blah, and blah. However, we are doing this, and we've created a video to explain more. And that drove people to our website. And on our website, I put together a video that was very practical, how to take care of yourself. This is what we're doing, but right now focus is on your safety, and these is how our services have changed to make that a priority. Then an email format followed a very similar theme of directing people back to that. And then subsequent to that was then thinking about the journey about, well, what if I want an OT? What do I do about that? And so on our homepage and our contact us page, we made some changes there to reflect what we're doing, but also offering people a pathway to then determine what is the right point of contact in our service profile to support them. That took me about a week to figure that out and just put that in place. And that was very much a decision on how do I market, position, communicate. It was a communication strategy first foremost, with some back of napkin thinking on my business process and how that would work. And I guess that has been a little bit of a change. I'm in a fortunate position that I have offered telehealth services in the past to my rural clients with head injuries and clients impacted by early stage dementia. And so, or strokes, Parkinson's disease, those folk that live with those sort of conditions. Then I've been offering regionally services to them via telephone through to FaceTime or using a platform like Zoom.
Yeah, great. So you've, I guess you were in the fortunate position that you had some of those systems and tools already at your disposal, and you were quite familiar with how to create that content and do that messaging. A week is great to be able to turn that kind of stuff around. I mean, you couldn't wait any longer than that.
No, it was very quickly, have to execute quickly and appreciate that some of my execution wasn't the best, but that it was that will do. And please don't dismiss that I've been able to quickly do this, guys. The business has taken a dramatic hit in terms of our ability to meet our clients, provide my contractors work. It has significantly changed. And not so much lockstep, but something that's been a very focused body of work for me has been the evolution of a program of work around teaching people how to take care of their cognitive fitness, how to protect their brains, how to protect their bodies so they can reduce their risk for memory loss, stay sharp, all the things that we desire. And I've been doing that for 5 or 6 years. And from that, people encouraged me to do more about it. And so Memory Health Made Easy was born last year. But it has been the second child, the second cousin to my current efforts around my clinical practice. However, this change, the disruption of coronavirus has meant that has now wound right up into more of a focus and more of an opportunity to be of service to folk and to help people, and also to, keep the business dream alive.
Yeah, great. And I took note of something you said in an earlier conversation, and that was something, I've lost the note now, but you were talking about how helping and serving people, which is something that you're doing right now, is helping with your creativity actually, and that's creating a lot of positive energy. So there's some good things coming out of this situation.
Yeah, it certainly is. It the disruptor, the necessity driver, has really made the tight timelines for creativity to push me, push my envelope of what I would normally be comfortable in doing.
Yeah.
And when it comes to communicating with my audience, particularly Memory Health Made Easy, it has really challenged me about where I felt quite vulnerable or guarded previously. I'm now stepping and leaning into that feeling with a little bit more of, I've got to do this. I've got to lean here and it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And it has an implication for risk, but one I'm very comfortable with. But it's that sort of decision that sometimes arises around, should I put this out there? Should I do that? And it comes back to still me reflecting on my mission and vision of what I'm doing, which is, I'm here to help people stop avoidable memory loss. And if I can do that as much as possible, awesome. That's the mission. Am I aligned to that? Is this helping me? Is this keeping me moving to that direction? Because at the moment, my timeline of strategy is very short because of the things how they've changed.
Yeah. That's actually probably a nice segue. If I can bring you into the conversation at this point, when you and I were talking earlier about so many of the things to do with this. In fact, we had a very long conversation earlier today, which was very interesting. But one of the things was how acutely this situation has made you consider what is your reason for being in business. So with the FishLane studio, you've had a big impact. It would be great if you could maybe just give us a little bit of background on that, and then we could come back to talking about how that's helped you get the space to think about your purpose, I guess, in business.
Yeah, I guess from my perspective, we have been working on a number of different levels and distributing effort across those various levels to a degree. So it has made me go back and think, what is the core purpose of what we're trying to achieve, and why have we taken this physical space, which we opened about 3 weeks ago and then had to close. And so it was all a bit of a sort of, what am I doing? Am I doing it for, is it going to provide the outcomes that we originally looked at? So I guess the thing that this time has given me is to sit down and really think about the kernel of effort that we're putting into this business, and what the key customer base is that we're dealing with, and how are we managing that both in the delivery and at the back end as well, because we've got that supply chain that goes from across the board, from suppliers of art materials and communication through to a group of artists who are very emotional. A lot of the artists that we have in our network live off their art, which is an amazing achievement. And with the downturn in the economy, this is a threat, and an enormous threat to those artists. So I guess my initial focus was to look at that network of artists that we have brought into our network, our stable of artists, if you like. They're not really our stable of artists because it's a very distributed group of artists across a really wide band of the community from across Australia and internationally. And the thing that was significant was that 32 of those artists were nominated at the end of last year to have their work and themselves, if they can afford to go, showcased in Italy in May this year. So we were looking at a really disappointed group of artists who are professional in their delivery, and how to balance that and how to maintain that level of enthusiasm for them to keep them going, so they didn't just drop their bundle and stop what they were doing. So I was fortunate, I guess, in that we have, over the past 5 years, developed a network that was the backbone for us. Part of that is digital, and we've been online as a leaders forum. The event in Italy includes 80 countries, over 80 countries, so there's leaders from each country, and we're on a leaders forum which we've been able to maintain, and that's really helped, because the feedback, even though they were facing such a critical time and the organisers in Fabriano in Italy were really struggling, they maintained a very positive outlook, and that communicated through to the 80 countries and the leaders from the 80 countries. And they've just come through this week with a solution, which is a YouTube solution, and they're going to stream live the event from Italy. Our artwork's there. So the 32 artists that are representing Australia this year will have their work showcased. And I've been able to send an email and put it on Facebook and show them that their work will be still honoured this year. And so I'm hoping that's enough to lift their enthusiasm. Yeah. We also put other things in place in the studio for them here in Australia, we set up a digital wall, which has been a solution so that every month now for the next 6 months, we can show 5 of the artists and the work from their studio. So we're trying to look at solutions that will bring them to the fore still as the selected artists from the Australian Watercolour Muster, and provide them with reason for being, so to speak. So I guess for me, that's been the key goal. And then all of the other peripheral things that hang off that, and solutions around having a physical space that we can't invite people into anymore, and an exhibition that's stored in another space that we can't access and you can't bring to this place. Keeping our team of artists motivated has been our critical drive, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm hearing 2 things from you there, and similar from you, Dave. One is the practical side of it. So how can we take what was otherwise going to be an international forum, big event, bringing people together, changing that platform? So how can we use digital tools, production tools to give some kind of a forum? But there's the perhaps somewhat intangible side of it as well, which is keeping those people enthused and engaged, and the psychology of it, or the emotional side of it, or everyone's mental well-being. So it's really nice to see the emphasis being placed equally on both parts there. It's not just about getting the channels up, although that's amazing that you've been able to do that again so very quickly, particularly with such a large international group. But then the enthusiasm side of it. How have you kept those people engaged and positive?
Do you want me to answer that? I guess it's a bit like David. I had like, you have a mail list and you have all those things that you can do, and so they become really critical. And I guess it's the fact that these people have put their level of trust in you. So when they see an email come through from you, they'll consume that maybe and look at it, and they'll take note of it. But then they interact back. So it takes a lot more effort, because you have to sit down and reply. And David's probably found this as well. So, but it's a different way of talking. You're not talking on the phone necessarily, though you do a lot of that. But Zoom and digital means of email and those sorts of things are the only way open to you, because you can't, So it's having built that level of trust, I think, at the beginning, hopefully, that means you can continue.
Yeah, great. We've had some questions come in from the attendees while you've been speaking there on these topics. One I'd like to pose to all of us, and anyone else on the line. If you have suggestions for this, please pop it in the chat window that you should all have access to. It's a question we've had a bit, actually, and that is, people's inboxes are filling up daily with COVID-19 messages. Some of them are relevant, some of them are not. So they're coming in from all and sundry is the question. What can we do to push through the noise and get our message heard? How have either of you, David or Wyn, overcome that?
I'm happy to kick it off there, Wyn, if you'd like. The things that I think that people are hungry for right now, and this is my community, and I think it's worth just bearing in mind that your community, your clients, your network will have potentially different needs, but I think at the core, people are wanting engagement. They are wanting some sense of solidarity, of connecting with somebody else who is experiencing a hardship together. And that messaging has been really powerful for my community. And the way that I've gone about supporting them, and I think that's perhaps my approach, is support. How can I be of service? How can I position what I am about and who I am to be of service to you. And in that, it's manifested as me pulling my network together to offer free education events around things that I think would be of help to them, and they have indicated would be of help that they're looking for. So, for example, I got together with a GP and we did a Q&A session, demystify COVID stuff, very practical in-home strategies. And so, yes, we're part of that COVID conversation, but it was a different conversation because we also touched on anxiety and what are the indicators of feeling overwhelmed and what can we be doing about it. And that led into another conversation around self-care. And that led into another conversation around about, trying new practices. So that's my flavor. Now, I had a conversation with a good friend of mine who runs a very successful mining engineering company. And their part in that community is around tunneling. And he's never done anything like this before. He didn't know what to do because all their projects have stopped. All their staff have been now working from home. It has been a complete handbrake on the continuity of their business. And we spoke about what ideas could work to connect that community. And so he started out running free education, ask a guest speaker come in, and it's a lunchtime conversation type approach around sharing business ideas in that ecosystem, education around latest thinking, because funny enough, there's a lot of good tunneling engineers in Italy who want to talk about their expertise. And so it can be quite a nice little community that you build up, but by doing so, you are positioning yourself as a leader. And you're taking a step forward for your community when they are asking for somebody to unconsciously assist them with their problem. And cutting through the noise, I would say, try not to be the COVID conversation, be the growing conversation, be the engaging conversation, be a one of solidarity conversation, and start to think about where you could do that, whether it's this type of tool using Zoom, whether it's creating a Facebook group, whatever it is, whatever's going to be fitting your community and where they are gathering at the moment. So I guess coming full circle, it's probably going to your 10 to 5 or whoever your best clients are and asking them some questions about, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Would this be of interest to you? I know there's a whole lot of stuff around COVID at the moment, and it's COVID, COVID, COVID. I, for one, have put the bumpers up about what I accept in my inbox now around that stuff. I'm now putting things in place around my social media sort of exposures and news exposures on this stuff. And I think we'll start to see people go, I'm just bored of COVID.
Yeah.
I'm bored and now I want some stuff.
There, Dave, I'll jump in there. We're noticing it as well, that people are getting a fatigue about these messages, and we need to be really mindful that from here on in, if you're going to communicate with your client base, it has to be authentic about what it is that you, like you said, what you can help them with. Don't be opportunistic in trying to make a link between what you do and the COVID-19 situation. That's just awful. I mean, if you have a link, make the link, but be authentic. I think that's what we're all saying, is be authentic, be helpful, be collaborative, and it sounds like that's been working for you. And I think that would work regardless of, I think that question, or I know that question may have come in from someone who's in an accounting business. Your client relationship in an accounting business is as important as any other business, and the way you communicate with those people needs to make sense for what it is that they interact with you for. So I know that I would be wanting my accountant to contact me about the things that matter for me in a business, as a business owner, or for me as an individual, if they know my situation. When we've had a different question come in, if I may jump, and it's been directed to you. have you seen much happening in the global art community around unusual or innovative ways to create permanent digital spaces, such as 3D walkthroughs of art, and perhaps charging a kind of an entry fee to access the virtual space? I might just stop it there. The question continues on, but you might have an initial answer.
Well, I guess there's quite a lot of innovation going on, and there's a lot of product out there now that, and everyone says to me, what app are you using, and how can you do this? And so there's a lot of genuine interest in taking work online, and there's people who are creating digital galleries so that you can walk around a premise and look at work hanging on a wall in the digital space. I guess for me, when I see that, a lot of it's experimental. Some of it's really good. But I guess when we started our digital wall, we talked about charging people to come on the digital wall. But I felt that was an opportunistic thing, because it really hurt me to think that I might be charging people this extra bit at a time when really they didn't have the cash. So I think that long term, some of these solutions will be really good. And yes, I agree that charging for access to them will be a valid thing down the track. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you often have people walk into your gallery or your museum or wherever, and you're allowed to go in for free, though some shows are charged for. So I guess you've got to find a balance between the things you charge for and as David said, the value proposition that you're offering. Some things are nice to be offered free of charge. So our digital wall is open now to the artists that we had selected for this year for Fabriano. We're going to make it a permanent part of the honour for artists each year, that they'll have that digital wall available to them as part of their winnings, I suppose, if you want to use that word. It's not a real word, but not what we mean. But so you've got to think through the value proposition that you're offering, and there is quite a bit of work going on to look at how you can stream the art live, 3D or 2D or whatever, and walk through. It's a bit like a real estate agent who has got the ability now to do fly-throughs. You can do the 360-degree fly-through of a house. It's a similar sort of style, sort of type capability. So it's something that, you can look outside your own industry and take tools like the real estate tools and the architectural tools that are coming online and adapt those. There's opportunities to do that. They'll be well worth looking at, I think. And how you charge and what you charge for, though, depends on the value proposition, I think, that you're offering, really. If it's an encouragement thing, like we want our digital wall to be an encouragement for our artists so that you can see them in their studio more and things like that, then I think it's not something I'm going to charge for. But, if it's just for people to have a view of the work and enjoy a special show, then perhaps charge for that, something like that.
Yeah, thank you. Some great thoughts there, and as a bit of a follow-up to that, Noelle, who submitted the question, is suggesting that at the moment there probably is an appetite and a desire or willingness to support local businesses and local artists. So if it's done in such a way, maybe it's a donation instead of asking for a charge. There might be ways of getting contributions through to those artists, but even just giving them a platform.
Can I add to that? Because I guess one of the aspects of the digital wall that we did create and it's on the FishLane Studio site, is that people can go and buy from that artist. So we put the capability up there, 5 paintings for each artist, which is available online for sale. So rather than us charging the artists, if they make a sale, then that's something that the community can support. So if people want to get behind our artists, feel free. That's fantastic.
Buy their art.
by their art.
Perfect, thank you. We've had, and I'm mindful of time as well, I've got time for a couple more questions and then maybe some closing thoughts from you each. But there is a question here that's come in. A lot of businesses have learned quite quickly to adapt to the COVID-19 situation by having employees work at home and other techniques. Are we seeing businesses start to think about making some of these changes permanent and actually changing their business models? This thinking about consulting professions, perhaps service professions, our clients or patients growing accustomed to remote consultation. So there's a few parts to that question. I think the bit about are we seeing businesses start to think about making some of these changes permanent and changing business models? I'm seeing examples of that. Are you both thinking of that in your own businesses or seeing that elsewhere?
Yeah, I'm certainly am, and can see changes. And I also want to maybe tie into David's question, Noel's question earlier too, around older clientele and their adaptation to digitally delivered services. I see that this is obviously we're in a major disruption point in our business history. Nothing has impacted us collectively like this previously in our sort of living history. And I think the opportunities that are around pushing us to innovate with using these digital tools to communicate, connect, collaborate, partner, are going to be pushed and fast-tracked so much quicker in this environment. The back end of it is that when we emerge and we start to able to shake each other's hands again, and looking back, I guess we'll have a wonderful review mirror to go, I really like that. And people still desire that and find that valuable. And when we can perhaps marry up those things in that new world, then certainly they'll be probably very much embedded into our business culture, our community experience moving forward. What that is, I don't know. In terms of how telehealth and that type of connectivity around quite intimate type services, 60 to 70% of people prior to this said that they were comfortable in receiving health services delivered via this type of media. The question about older clientele and their adaptability is they are the largest group, fastest group of uptake of digital technologies that we know. For example, Facebook growth, the social media use. So the question, I was on a webinar last night talking to all the occupational therapists across Australia about delivering this type of service. And even amongst my colleagues, they hold a strong bias about whether people would, dependent on age or disability status. And yet we are seeing significant uptake, and I have not had anyone say no to me yet around using this tool as a service and a way to deliver service. So at this stage, it seems to be a yes, and people are learning about how to best leverage this tool to get outcomes for their clients. I expect in me moving forward in the future still to have face-to-face, hand-to-hand contact with my clients when I need to, but already I'm providing services in a much more leveraged way than I have before, because it's actually forced me to think about how do I get an outcome for my client.
Yeah, great.
I actually think that what David's saying is true, that having now everyone having to focus more on the digital aspect of communication has its real advantages, and I think they're things that are going to become permanent. Because one of our artists actually said to me, wow, she said, we couldn't go to Italy this year. So the sad thing was they felt like they were going to miss out. Now it's going to be YouTube to them, and everyone's going to be able to access the information and see it in real time. And so it will be streamed free of charge for the artists, presumably. I'm not sure of all the details yet. But this inclusion is now breaking down those distance barriers. And And it's going to mean that people who would have been excluded in the past can be included. So it's a lesson learned, really, that the excitement that this has generated in our community over the fact that they can now be part of this whole thing, even though they couldn't afford to fly to or get there for whatever reason, they will be able to be part of this whole exciting showcase. So there's lots of advantages in the digital world coming together, and it has forced people who would perhaps have ignored it for whatever reason, age or technology capability or whatever. It's meant that you can bridge that communication gap.
Yeah, they're two great examples, and we're seeing not dissimilar in our business and some of our other clients in the B2B space. You know, massive big industry events have been postponed or cancelled, but on the flip side, it's forcing them to find different ways of getting their consulting services out or their professional services out. We were talking with a client a couple of weeks ago who is a large enterprise software company, and normally when they onboard new clients, and we're talking, you know, multi-million-dollar services and software deals here, they would be doing weeks of in-person onboarding sessions with clients, whiteboarding, all sitting in war rooms together, running agile sessions. You know, they've had to really quickly pivot to doing all that online. They've got the tools, they're all tech savvy people, but they've been forced to change the way they interact and collaborate, and it's starting to work for them. So there's an example of a professional services and consulting type business that may not have to spend so much on international travel going forward. Now, that might not be good for the international travel industry, but perhaps it's good for them fast tracking business, so there'll be other positive flow and effects from it. I'm looking at the time. We're just shy of 1 p.m. I promise that we keep this conversation short, but I think it's been such a good one, and we've had some great questions coming in. Some parting thoughts from each of you. Perhaps it'd be nice, we like to sort of end the calls with some little tidbits or takeaways that people can maybe bring back to their own businesses, practical tips, inspiring thoughts.
Maybe just, I can say that to take people forward and look ahead, it's the conversation we had before is really important. And I think if you can do that and like show people that you're not getting bogged down in the situation, that you are planning, you're thinking ahead, and you're thinking about their needs for the future, then you'll probably be able to come out the other end hopefully with some good results.
Excellent, I like that.
Amy, I want to give you one example that I think would help, and I want to share one tool that I absolutely love, and it helps me, and I think answers some of the questions there, particularly about getting cut through and attention and engagement with the audience. I haven't been in LinkedIn for such a long time. I rarely attend to LinkedIn, and as part of my shakedown, as I call it, of COVID-19, I thought I need to try this and see what happens. And I thought I'd share my podcast with what I was doing. And as a result of one post, I had new business come out of that step. So I would encourage you just to look at what you're currently doing and where you may not have been or not understood or felt comfortable with, and maybe put that on the evaluation board about, is it worth taking some rapid action to see what results you might get or what sort of feedback you might get. That conversation has now led into 3,000 people who live in retirement villages have now more iPads and tablets they know what to do with, because the pool room is closed, the pool is closed, the activities are closed, the cafes are closed, the drinks hour is closed, and they are in their spaces and they are struggling. As a response to this, I was asked now to then design and deliver programs into those communities to help them through not only developing life's very important life skills, but also helping them continue to have a sense of engagement, purpose, solidarity, and connection with each other. So that's that's within 9 days, as an example about how quickly things are moving and how I did not expect something like that to be happening, or would I perceive an opportunity like that? So there are opportunities out there, and it may just ask us to think about putting ourselves out though into those environments a little bit differently than what we've done before, or to turn up. One tool that is helping me a lot in communicating with people, be it my clients or be it businesses or partners, is the power of video. And I'm making short messages using video, embedding it in my email and sending that off to folk. And I get, wow, thank you type statements, which really go to the heart of what I'm trying to achieve. But there is something tangible about the effort. It's almost like receiving a letter again. Remember those moments where you received a handwritten letter that somebody's actually thoughtfully crafted and sent to you? It seems to have that sort of gravitas. And so if that's something that would fit within what you're doing, that you wanted to help connect with folk and help build strong relationships and do that's something that I found very helpful.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I like that. So a few things there. Video as a tool is working really well for you. And I think a lot of businesses would find the same thing. And it's really, really so much easier to do these days. Hearing though, being authentic, again, in what it is that you're saying to people. So the video is a great mechanism, but your message needs to be relevant and authentic. And I heard earlier there being a little bit brave, taking a risk. And I think you said this a bit earlier as well, when it's okay to experiment at the moment. It's okay. We've got to try new things. We have to force ourselves to be a bit more creative in business. And so getting out there, if there's a platform that you've been thinking, oh, maybe I'll do it, I'm not sure, give it a go. Give it a go. Be authentic. People, I think, are a little bit sensitive and forgiving at the moment because we're all having to try new things. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. That's how you know it's okay to fail, but hopefully you won't in those things. It's 2 minutes to 1 o'clock. We will wrap up on time. Thank you both so very much for joining us today. Really, really great conversations. And thank you to everybody who has joined us on the webinar online. A recording of this will be available. We'll share it on our website and social media channels. If you have questions that we haven't been able to get to today, please don't hesitate. You can email us at helpline@theotmcompany.com. If you didn't get that written down quick enough, just jump on our website. There's a form and a link there. Look me up on LinkedIn. Look anyone from OTM up on LinkedIn. We're all contributing to this. And if we don't know the answers, as you're starting to see, we have an amazing community of people who I'm sure would be happy to help with some answers. So thank you again. And hopefully you'll all have a fantastic Easter break. And we'll see you again next week for another webinar.